If you are from North Carolina, you have probably heard the story of the Brown Mountain Lights. There are many different versions that are probably irrelevant to my experience, but that's beside the point. About a year ago, 4 of my friends and I were at Wiseman's View off the Blue Ridge Parkway. We decided to go up there without flashlights or lanterns. We had walked the whole trail and went to the ledge to watch the lights. We watched them for about an hour. It was close to midnight, so it was completely dark except for the lights in the valley and our cell phones. My boyfriend and his friend and I were cold and tired of watching the lights, so we headed back to the Jeep, leaving the other 2 people behind. We were walking up the trail. Heather was a few feet in front of Justin and me. We were walking side by side. I happened to glance over, and I saw 2 green eyes standing about 6 feet in the air. I screamed. So Justin looked over and saw them too. We yelled for Heather, and we all took off running back to the Jeep. We got in and locked the doors, waiting for Chris and Lacey. We waited for about half an hour, and they still hadn't made it back. We were starting to worry that they had fallen off the ledge or the eyes had gotten them. Out of nowhere, we saw them running and screaming towards the Jeep. We unlocked the doors and let them in. Before I told them what we saw, they told us they saw the exact same thing in the exact same place. We didn't have cell phone service, so there was no way someone could have let them know about what we saw. On the way back down the road, I kept looking in the woods, and I could see the eyes. I'm pretty sure it wasn't an animal, and I know I wasn't seeing things because everyone else saw it too. What could it have been? A few weeks later, I went back to Wiseman's View. We went in the daylight this time because we were too scared to go at night. We were sitting at the ledge telling ghost stories about people falling off that very ledge and dying. It's a long drop, probably close to half a mile or so. As we were talking, I happened to look down and I saw, or thought I saw, someone off another ledge about 30 feet down. It's impossible to get to that ledge without using some type of climbing equipment. I don't know if I was just letting my imagination get to me or what. There are also stories about people killing themselves up that trail because not many people go there. My stepmom was telling me a story about when her son went to ASU in Boone. There was a guy that went to school with him that had disappeared. The cops were getting desperate, so they called in a psychic investigator. Wiseman's View is about an hour from the campus, but the psychic told the police right away that they would find their answers there. When they got there, he was hanging from a tree about 40 feet in the air. I saw that tree, and to me, it looks impossible for someone to climb. I don't know if that part of the story was made up or if it was real, but I did read the article about the student. They said it was suicide, but if he was really hanging from that tree, he had help from something. I could go on for days about the stories from Wiseman's View, but I think you get the picture. Could the same thing be causing all the deaths? Or could they be completely unrelated? Around 10 years ago, I resided in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is approximately 15 to 20 miles from the town of Vander, North Carolina. This story actually begins around 1978 or around about this time. At the time, I was around 23 years old, and as of course most young boys of my age, I was curious of everything, either natural or unnatural. I'd heard about the Vander Light and was somewhat curious about the matter. Some of my friends had told me about this light and some of the characteristics of this event. They had explained that on a back road, off the main road leading south of Fayetteville, that on a gloomy night, with very few to no stars in the sky, a bad accident had occurred quite a few years ago, in which a man was traveling in the rear of a train car, the caboose, when he noticed another train approaching behind the train he was flagging for. He began to swing the lantern from side to side to warn the approaching engineer of the situation. It has been said that the approaching engineer was busy and didn't see the lead train. As to the story that I had been told, after the accident, the only part of the flagman's body that was not found was his head. I had to see this for myself, and as soon as the time came where there was a dark and gloomy night, we went out to see about what was the truth or otherwise. Well, much to my astonishment, we could only park beside the main road and walk down the track, being especially cautious of oncoming trains. About 1/4 of the way down the tracks, we came close to a Y in the tracks, where there had to have been a split to the right in the tracks. About 200 feet from this split in the tracks, I began to notice a faint, glowing light going from side to side, back and forth. I was not alone, but trying not to be scared, continued on. My friends did not, much to my dismay. It seemed that the closer that I got, the faster the light seemed to move towards me. At around 25 feet or so, the swinging light disappeared. This was truly spooky, I have to admit, but when I turned around to return to the road, the same swinging light was exactly the same distance as it was previously. Now I am starting to get a little worried. In the same matter as to the speed approach, as when I had first come up to the light did the same. It didn't take me long to reach the car, as you would guess. I returned to this area once more in about 5 years or so, at which time my exact memory was not completely positive as to the exact site in Vander. Local directions were not completely reliable, so I began to ride around until I found the exact place. This time, I was on a dirt bike, for a quick getaway if need be. When I approached the Y in the tracks, there was no sign of this light, but when I went to turn around, and after I was actually facing the opposite direction, I could see the same lights, but this time they were only in my mirrors. In fact, each and every time I would turn around, they were there. Then I was truly scared, so I backed up the dirt bike and gunned it, and actually jumped both sets of the Y-split. I know that this is most definitely not some kind of a prank or anything else of the same. In fact, as it goes, I will be willing to submit to a polygraph test as to what I really saw. It only occurs on a dark and gloomy night, and that's the only time for some unforeseen reason. Who knows? Maybe the conditions of a dark and gloomy night are the same as when the accident happened. I don't really know, nor do I now care, but I know what I saw, and I think that my friends saw the same thing. That's what scared them so. Sure, I'd go back, but only to prove what I'm saying can be witnessed by anyone with the same wish to know the truth. I'm not sure where to begin in this story. I've never shared it with anyone outside my family. I guess I can start with what happened tonight. My family was sitting at the table eating, and my niece starts talking about the pointsies. This isn't the first time she's mentioned them, and at first we thought it was just her imagination. She's a very vivid and animated 3-year-old with an extensive vocabulary, but sporadically, over the past year, her story has never wavered. She describes these creature things that are all white, no hair, no face, no eyes, no mouth, but they can still talk to her. At first we thought maybe it was something she had seen on a commercial for a cartoon or something, but she started crying, saying that they scare her. They only talk to her and Bonky. Bonky is an all-black figure that lives in our clock in the living room. After talking about them for a little while, she went without mentioning them for a good 4 months. Then one day randomly came bolting up the hallway screaming that, "The Pointies are gonna get me!" The look on her face was one of pure terror, but again, nothing about them or Bonky until tonight. She said they were standing on her grandmother's TV dancing. She imitated the dance, which was more of a weird crawl. We asked her, "Are they nice?" And she said, "They're nice, but they just scare me, and I want them to go away and never come back." There have been strange instances in the house as well. It's my mother, my sister, my niece living in the house, and one night I was in my room and everybody else was in my mom's room. My mom's room is right beside mine, and you can see if anyone comes in or out of her room from mine. We started to smell something burning. I went in my mom's room and asked was anybody cooking, and forgot something in the oven, and nobody had been. I walked into the kitchen to see a candle. The big 3-wick heavy candles had been turned on its side and was still lit. I blew the candle out, but didn't think much of it until no one had been anywhere near the kitchen since the candle was lit. A couple nights later, my mom was laying in her bed watching TV, and all of a sudden felt a slight pressure on her leg. She looked down, and one of my niece's toys, the little green thing from Yo Gabba Gabba, was sitting on her leg looking at her. It's been in the toy bin since. My sister gets bad migraines once in a blue moon, and she'll usually shower with the lights off to help ease the tension of them. One of those nights, she was in the shower with all the lights off and the door closed, and she heard breathing. Thinking it was my mom or myself that had come into the bathroom to get something, she didn't think anything of it until she opened her eyes and saw a faint figure with a red ember, like someone was in there smoking a cigarette. She freaked out and turned on the lights, but there was nothing there. I've heard a growl from another room on one occasion, and just other small instances. Most of it I can overlook and possibly write off as a weird happening or just a freak thing, but am I being too nonchalant about this? Is this something that I need to be worried about? Lately, I cannot seem to clear up a few of my experiences. About 4 years ago, my husband and I were in bed, and I woke up to see an African American lady in a long dress holding a shawl. She was at the corner of the end of our bed on my side. I didn't scream or get scared, but I saw her very plainly for a few seconds up against our dresser, and then she was gone. I happened to be having a recurring dream at the time, and wonder if that all goes into play since she wasn't a person in the dream. I never saw her after that either. Also, my husband had just returned from a deployment, and I had been alone for 3 months. We were living in an apartment complex in North Carolina. The next one was about 7 years ago. My dad had died from pulmonary fibrosis and was living in Michigan while I was in South Carolina with my mom and stepfather. He had been sick for a while, and I left Michigan because it was becoming too hard for me. The home that my stepfather bought was a home belonging to a local doctor that had lived there his whole life and took care of everyone in town. So, after I came back from my father's funeral, I kept a light on in my room in South Carolina, and the door open to the hallway because someone kept caressing my head. I started sleeping at the opposite end of the bed as well. I told it that I was okay and to leave me be, thinking it was my dad. However, I was also going through some medical worries myself and thought maybe it could have been the past resident. After that, I had not been touched, but I still feel creeped out in that house. When I was like 6 or 7, I got a free doll at the flea market. I still remember other toys in the box that the woman was selling. She let me and my brother take the box home for free along with the doll. The doll wore a red dress and had a red hat to go along with it. It had blue eyes and blonde, messy hair. For some reason, it had an emotionless face. I don't quite remember if I played with the doll or not, but after moving into a new built house, I put the doll in the box and into the basement. Since I'm scared of sleeping, I slept with my mom and dad along with my brother in the same room until I entered 3rd grade. During that time, I completely forgot about the doll. Then one day, I went to the basement to look at my toys and stuffed animals I had when I was a little kid to play with it again or throw it away. That's when I spotted the doll again. Because I was a stupid kid, I decided to display the doll in my room. Some months later, I began to have an aggressive attitude. I didn't want anyone in my room because I wanted to be alone. I wasn't like that when I was younger, and all the time I would have my door closed and locked. Somehow, guests who entered my room, I didn't yell at them to get out, but only my mom and my younger brother. I rarely yell for my mom to get out, and except my brother. Most of the time, when he opened the door to come in, I would yell at him to get out, and he would. There were rare times that I let him stay in my room or come in. And over time, I had the feeling of being watched in my room, and it's mostly from the doll. My shelf was behind my desk, where I sat to do things. When I sit down and do something, I have the feeling of being watched from behind. There were times when I would turn around to look at the doll, and as always, it has an emotionless face, but rarely times I would see a small smile creep on her face. I wonder if I imagined it or not, but I still have the feeling of being watched. And at night, when I sleep, I would have the feeling of someone being on my bed, standing over me. I still have that doll, and it's still in my room. For some reason, I don't want to throw the doll away, as if something is keeping me from throwing it away. Hey guys, it's Night Terrors here again. Well, you made it through another video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you could, please click that like button and be sure to subscribe. I'm still getting used to the whole video editing software, finding my voice, but I promise the videos are gonna get better and better. Just have patience. As always, you are very welcome to comment or private message me your own stories, and I would be happy to read them for everybody else. So, thanks again, and have a great evening.